Welcome to the Closed M&A Podcast with Cable Hill Advisors. I'm your host, Craig Castelli. Today, my guest is Lee Edwards, President and CEO of The Greenery, a very successful commercial landscaping business. They're based in beautiful Hilton Head. They have about a dozen or so branch offices all up and down the Southeast. So, Lee, let's jump right in. You decided to join your parents in business in your early 20s. Did 25-year-old Lee have any idea of what this business would become?
Not really. I knew I'd gone and worked at a different company. I did an internship at a large landscape company up in the Northeast, and I had worked at a couple other smaller companies. So I sort of had a vision of where I wanted the company to go more like in 5 or 10 years, but I really didn't quite see it spread out across the Southeast. I thought we'd grow a good bit in coastal South Carolina and Georgia, but it's really become a lot more than I think I envisioned.
Yeah. What do you think has been most critical to your success up to this point?
Well, I've always felt we need to be a growth-oriented company. And the reason for that is because to me, in this industry, the way you hold on to really good people is you got to provide that next step for them for growth. Whether that's a guy out there running a weed eater who wants to become a crew leader or become a tech or a manager, or if it's somebody that some kid you hire out of college with a horticulture degree and he wants to become a branch manager or a regional manager or a VP, but whatever that next step is for that person, if you don't have that step up for them, that opportunity for them to step up and grow their career or grow their income, well, they're going to go find somebody who will give them that opportunity, or they're going to go out and start their own company. Either way,
yeah, I mean, that's a great observation
with them.
Right. Yeah. And if you're not growing, there's only so many of those roles available, right? So you need to grow in order to create those opportunities.
Yeah. Well, the last thing you want is a really talented person feeling like they're in a dead-end job or that they don't have any future at your company.
Right. It also reminds me of that old adage, the debate, what happens if we train our employees really well and they leave? And it's like, well, what happens if we don't train them and they stay?
Good point. Yeah.
So you guys took, I think, really the ultimate step in terms of a commitment to your employees and showing them growth in the early 2000s when you launched an ESOP and eventually reached the point where you became 100% employee owned. So just take us through and why it was important for you to make that move.
Well, there are a couple of things that played into that. I had moved up to Charleston, South Carolina, and opened a separate company called The Greenery LLC. And it was outside of The Greenery Inc. We still shared resources and same name, branding, and all that, but it was a separately owned company. And I was running that. My father and I and a couple other people were partners in it. And then my dad started thinking about, his future and retirement at some point. And then he got cancer. And that sort of really accelerated that. And, he was always a big believer in that whole growth thing and promoting from within. And we had a bunch of really great employees that had been there for a long time and helped really grow the business. And so I was sort of thinking I was going to keep on doing my thing in Charleston because, I always thought my dad was the type of person who would work till the day he dropped. And, he was diagnosed with a couple of different types of cancer at 59, and he started really rethinking things. He'd already been considering an ESOP, and that just sort of accelerated it. So he and my mom started the ESOP, and then he sort of realized that if he was going to do that and get out of the business 100%, he needed to go ahead and bring in somebody. And so he said, I've got a bunch of great people, but nobody who I think can take over the reins. So we've either got to go hire somebody, or I'd really like you to come do it. And so I said, okay. And so I came back in early 2007, and I took over the reins shortly thereafter. And the deal my dad and I had, we both sort of agreed to this, was that that he wouldn't stay in the business. I didn't want somebody looking over my shoulder, and to be honest, he didn't either. He just said, "Hey, I want to retire. I want to get out of the business. I want to stop working, and I'm available as a consultant if you need me." And I'm happy to report he's been cancer-free for well over 20 years now, and he still does a little consulting for me when I need it. So.
Well, that's amazing to hear. And did you? I'm just curious now, going a little bit off topic, but when you first started, did you take him up on the consulting offer, or did you know everything that there was to know at that point in life, and and just say, "Dad, I'm good"?
I can say I knew everything, but I tried not to bother him too much. But on occasion, he's a good sounding board to have, and he's still proud of the company, and he likes to see what we're doing and see the growth we've achieved, and even some of the people that he hired, over 20 years ago are still here, and he might have had a guy that some kid he hired right out of college, and who's now one of my vice presidents or a regional manager or a branch manager. And so, he likes to see what's going on, but he also likes not coming to work every day. And he and Mom do a lot of traveling, and they've got a great life outside of work. So it really has worked out well.
Yeah, as they should. But I'm sure he's proud of you, and proud to see where this business has become. And it's a testament to both of you if you have, hires that he made that have now become leaders in your organization. I mean, you both did things right along the way, which is not something that we can say always happens with generational transfers of businesses.
Well, a lot of those long-term employees are key individuals here, and that's something that I really take a lot of pride in. I love our long-term clients and our long-term employees, and that really, I think it's a testament of hiring good people, providing that opportunity for them to stay here, and and I mean, we need them. They're the backbone of the business. So, I'm not the one out there meeting with clients every day, or out there keeping our properties looking great. It's all those other troops out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys recently reached another inflection point, and you had to raise a little capital from an outside investor to facilitate the buyout of the ESOP and accelerate, your growth. There's only so much you can grow with your own internal resources. How did you know it was the right time to do something like that?
Well, there were a couple of factors at play. Number one, as great as the ESOP has been, we've been employee owned for about 20 years, and it's been a really great retention tool. When somebody earns stock in the company, you hand them that stock certificate, and the first one they get, it's maybe a few $100 or even $1,000, and they're like, big deal. But as that value's gone up, and then they earn more stock every year, and after a few years, somebody's like, oh wow, this is real money. This is a difference maker. And whether that's a highly compensated person or the low man on the totem pole, it's real money, and it's stock in the company. So the ESOP was really great in that, and it helped build that ownership mentality, and it was wonderful. But as people earned stock over time, it became more and more valuable. But as the company's grown, there's a finite amount of stock. And so what would happen is the company gets bigger, the stock amount stays the same, so that the amount of stock you're doling out, it's kind of a smaller piece of the pie, if you will. And it's not as valuable as it used to be. And it's already hard to tell somebody that, hey, your biggest benefit to come work at this company is that you're going to earn stock in it and it's going to be a great retirement program. I mean, that's a hard sell for a lot of people, especially young people. When you say, oh, well, you work here for 20 years and you'll build up this great nest egg. And then now that stock is getting split up more and more, it's not really as great a benefit as it used to be. And so you sort of start to have the haves and the have-nots. So the haves are the people that have been here a long time that have a lot of stock, and the have-nots are the new people that you want to have tons of energy and be excited about joining the company. And they're really not ever going to have that big payoff. So that's when we determined, it's time to start looking at other alternatives. And it was also a good timing wise. We've been having some good growth, and we sort of got a really good team of people that we knew we wanted to keep and reward. So we said, this is probably the time to try and figure out how to buy out the ESOP.
Yeah, that's interesting. Has it shaped your thinking about the future in any ways, perhaps differently than before you went through that?
I don't know if it's shaped the way we look at the company differently, but it's given us some added professionalism. And like you said, you mentioned earlier, it's, we want to accelerate our growth. There are all these great things about the ESOP, but part of it is that you have to buy back stock every year as people retire, and it sort of retards your growth because of financial constraints. You have to do that stock repurchase every year, and so it allows us to maybe look at some more acquisitions and maybe accelerate our growth a little bit. So, which is something that I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah, well, let's spend some time talking about that. So just level set up until this point. How much of the expansion has been opening new branches, and how much has been from M&A?
Well, we've sort of organically grown each branch, and sort of reached out just a little bit, maybe start doing work in a market, and then and one that's not too distant, and then eventually build the capacity out there and the critical mass that we can say, okay, now we're going to plant a flag there, we're going to open a branch. And then we've also done that where we've gone into a market, we start doing work there, we look at business there, and we find a small company to buy out. That's what I call sort of a hybrid. It's between a greenfield and you're not buying a big team, you're buying a small group and maybe a facility. And it's not like you're just going to a new market and saying, hey, we're going to start here. So we've done a few of those over time. We did a fairly sizable acquisition down in Jacksonville, Florida, and that was more of a traditional straight up acquisition. We bought their team, we sort of added to it, and we've grown it since then. We did another one up in Greenville, South Carolina. So we've done a combination, but most of our growth over time has been just organic growth within our branches. I don't know if I got into it earlier, but the company in Charleston that I started years back, the Greenery of Charleston, we eventually sold it. They continued doing business there under the Greenery name, and we sort of had a little partnership together. And that company is recently sold, but they were not allowed to sell the brand. And so now we've opened up a new branch back in Charleston. So that's a place where we're excited. It's a good market. We've got name recognition, and things have sort of exploded there. We're really taken off. So that's an example of just going and open a new branch in a market where technically we've been in before, but it's been a long time.
Sure.
and no acquisition there, but things have really taken off and done well. But
Yeah,
we're looking at both though. We want to continue expanding the branches we're in, and we're actively seeking some acquisitions.
two things stand out to me about that. Number one, it sounds like as you've grown, you've been comfortable taking on bigger and bigger acquisitions and committing more resources to this, and obviously with the refinancing of the business, that gives you that much more firepower. But two, and this is more important, M&A alone is not the way to grow. If you can show that not only can you buy another business, but you can grow it after you buy it, and you can keep growing this business if you didn't make another acquisition, that builds more value than anything else you can do in a company, in my opinion.
I think so, but it is nice, especially if there's a market. Like, to me, an acquisition really makes the most sense if there's a market that you say, we want to be in that market.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard just to go move to a new state, a new city, and to have the people in place. It's hard to build a branch like that, and it's slow going in the beginning. So that's where I think an acquisition makes sense. But you're right. We want to continue growing where we are, and if we make that acquisition, we absolutely have to grow it. So
no question. So when you're out there looking, what excites you the most when you look at someone else's business?
Well, it's the people, number one. They've got to have a good team. We're not interested in buying a bunch of contracts and a bunch of old crappy landscape equipment. We've got plenty of that.
You got all you can handle, right?
Yeah. So what we're looking for is somebody who's going to be the right fit for us. We're typically not the low ball price, the mow, blow, and go guy. We are looking for companies that have good team members that want to grow their career and be involved in a professional organization. We're looking for companies who have long-term clients, not the just churn and burn, low bid guy. So that's really important. Company culture is super important to us. If there's a business owner who's maybe considering getting out at some point, but he wants to take care of his team, he's got a bunch of loyal employees, I think we could be a really good fit. Even though we're not an ESOP anymore, we're not employee owned, we did have about 20 of our current team members roll their equity into our new entity.
Oh, wow.
And so we still have a lot of employee ownership. So all our leadership team has ownership. I'm just a big believer in, you've got to spread the wealth, you got to spread the equity to get the most out of people. And so, if we're looking for an acquisition, and maybe if the owner wants to get out, that's fine. Maybe he has some key team members that want to become part of the team. Maybe not. And then the other opportunity is if there's somebody who has a successful company and they're a really successful landscaper, but maybe they don't want to deal with some of the headaches that come with running a large business, like insurance and HR and legal and all that stuff. If they're a really good operator and they want to continue growing that business, we'd love to have them join us, and maybe they get a piece of the bigger picture. We can take some of those headaches off them and literally, help them grow that business. And that's something that I'm really excited about getting. And I'm excited about both opportunities, but I think there are a lot of good people out there, good operators that maybe just don't want to deal with some of those headaches, and getting beyond the small to medium size and taking that next step. And there are a lot of headaches with that. Believe me, I know, because I've lived through them. And now that we've gotten a little scale and a little more history on our side, we can sort of alleviate some of those headaches for some good landscape operators.
Talk about that a little bit more, because that was definitely a topic I wanted to get into. How you're solving numerous problems for any business owner who you're acquiring, right? And if we assume that the valuation is table stakes, we don't need to talk about that. If we look at those who want to stay with the business in one way, shape, or form, how are you helping them solve some of those problems related to growth and busting through whatever ceiling they may have run up against?
Well, it's a lot of the systems that we have in place, whether it's accounting, whether it's operational, operating systems, whether it's insurance or fleet management. What we try to tell like our branch managers is we want you to go out and be a really great landscaper. We don't want you to have to deal with the landlord or fixing the roof of your branch, or you deciding, oh, well, how much am I going to pay for this truck, or how much am I going to pay for this skid steer? How am I going to finance a new fleet of mowers this year? We've got people that do all that. Same way, if you get a trip and fall on a job site or a workers' comp claim, we've got HR, and we've got safety people who handle that sort of stuff and manage those things. And that doesn't mean the operator there doesn't have to be involved in any of that. We want their input. We want their, we want them to be a part of that, but they don't get bogged down with all that. We want people who can, go out and sell business and inspire their teams to give great service, great customer service and quality long-term landscape production. And so I think those are some of the ways. A big one is we use Aspire, which is it's a industry-wide operating software, and some people love it and some people it's not really for them. But we think we've gotten it's a really good way to run your business, to see visibility, and the people who like it really embrace it, and they can do so much more. It just makes you become a much more productive operator. And some smaller companies are using that, and it's great if they are. A lot of them aren't maybe using it to the full extent that maybe we are, and I think we can help with that. And we can also alleviate some of the headaches that go with it, because if you're a real small operator and you're trying to do this heavy lift adopting a software system, that's not much fun. We did it a few years back, and it was a heavy lift. And to be honest, we lost a few people who just said, this isn't for me, which was fine. But the people who embrace it, they love using it, and you just get so much more visibility into the business. And we want entrepreneurial people. We want people running those branches that have all that visibility, who can take on a lot. And we let them run it, like their own little business without a lot of those headaches.
Yeah, well, I think that those are some things that are not as often talked about when we're glamorizing entrepreneurship. The amount of risk of financial loss or litigation or anything else that just falls back on the business owner solely. The mental load that they're carrying around, worrying about all of these things. You can't always quantify that. You can't always put a value on that. But having that peace of mind that that's no longer solely on you. If you sleep better at night, if you can, have a little more balance in your life, and at the same time, you can grow your business faster because those problems are solved. I mean, that seems to me like a pretty big win-win.
I think so. I think anybody who's run a small business has had those, burning the candle at both ends. You're worried about making payroll. You're worried about making truck payments. You're worried about collections. You're worried about getting your guys safely to the job and doing a quality job. Um, Man, it can be a lot. And, I've been there, you know, going, a whole year without a vacation and without time off. And, uh, when I was in my 20s, I was fine doing that. Now I'm slightly older and, I need a little more work-life balance. And, um, there are some folks that I think might be looking for that. You can still have a very good income and a big upside down the road. Um, so, we're looking for those people who uh, certainly we want people who still have that fire burning, who want to grow their business, who want to charge hard, who want to take that next step, but also maybe they do want to have a little better work-life balance and maybe have somebody else help them out with some of those other headaches.
Yeah, and perhaps a little liquidity along the way, which also you can go, big periods without, as we all know. So, Lee, as we get close to wrapping up here, tell us what makes you most excited about the Greenery's next 3 to 5 years.
Um, I think it's the people, the growth, and seeing the opportunities ahead. And we've been addressing with our leadership team, and we sort of build out an org chart, and we say, okay, here's where we are now, and here's where we're looking in the future. And we have all these empty spots on that org chart, and we're telling people, hey, these spots are going to need to get filled. And it can be y'all, it can be new hires, it can be somebody from an acquisition, but there are going to be tons of opportunities for a lot of growth here for a lot of people. And I'm excited about seeing some people grow into those, some people stay where they are and grow in the position they're in. But I get excited when I see my team members getting all fired up about building the business, whether it's building it in their department or whether it's going and moving to a new market and opening up a new branch, or and we've done that several times. And it's pretty cool seeing somebody, build a branch, build a region, or maybe move down the hall into a totally different role than they've ever been in and blossoming under that. We've got people who graduated with a horticulture degree or a landscape architecture degree or a economics degree, and they're doing something completely unrelated to what they started in, but they're really successful and doing well all within our company. And that's exciting. I love seeing that.
It's an amazing feeling. There's really nothing quite like it. So, last question here. Give us a piece of advice for a business owner, something that they might not have heard before.
Well, I'll relate it to our industry, but I think this is true in in a lot of businesses. What I've found, and I talk to people in our industry, and our biggest expense in landscaping, you look at any landscaper's P&L statement, and it's always labor. That's the number one expense. And that's true with every single landscaper out there. But a lot of people, they look at that as a huge cost. And I try to flip that around. And I look at our people as our biggest asset. And because, like I said earlier, I'm not out there dealing with clients. I'm not out there doing the work, driving the trucks, running the equipment. We've got great people that are all doing that. And some of those great people are the ones building that relationship with the clients. And that might, it doesn't necessarily have to be the account manager. That can be the guy running a blower or a weed eater out on a job site. And, they're working at a POA or a hotel or something, and a guest or a homeowner's walking by, and you stop your blower and you smile and you wave at them and you say, good morning. We're part of that experience. And if you treat your people like they're just a big cost, they're not going to learn that. They're not going to realize that, hey, that the client that's there is the one that's responsible for my paycheck. I tell them, hey, treat your clients like they're the ones paying you, because they are. And so if you treat your employees really well and you let them know that, they're part of the success and they're the reason why you're there, treat them like your biggest asset and they'll perform like that. If you treat them like they're just a really expensive cost, then that's what they're going to be. And, I've seen some companies like that, but I think, especially in the service industry, it's not like we have some new gadget or some great product that we sell. Oh, this is so much better than anybody else's, electronic device, or, got a water bottle here. This is the greatest water bottle ever. Or, it's not like the latest Yeti that everybody wants. We're selling service and outcomes, and you got to have really good people to do that. So I think in most businesses, but particularly in a service-oriented business like ours, you gotta really build your team and treat your people like they're more than just a cost. But I tell them all the time, you're the biggest asset we have at the Greenery is good people doing good work.
Yeah, there's no greater extension of your brand than your people. They're the ones out there on the job sites, meeting with the customers, meeting with the prospects, demonstrating to the world what your values are, what your vision are, what, who you are as a brand. And clearly you've exemplified it, because, you have a lot of employees who in traditional businesses don't stick around for very long, who've been with you for, a very long time. So it's a testament from, that belief from the top, being instilled through the entire organization.
Well, like I said, we've got a lot of people that have been here a long time, and that's what I'm more proud of than anything in this business. It's exciting to see a new branch open, or you do really well, have a great year financially. But what makes me more excited is seeing those people stay here and continue building our business.
So Lee, if someone wants to learn more about the Greenery, let's say they're that next great hire with high potential, or that next acquisition target who thinks the Greenery would be a great next home for their business, where can they learn more, and how should they get in touch?
Well, you can find us on the web. We've got a great website, thegreeneryinc.com. You can read about us there, call us, reach out to us, contact us, reach out to me personally, or our HR department if you're somebody who's looking to build their career. I'm the main contact for potential acquisitions, and it's not like I've ever called somebody and said, hey, we're interested in maybe buying your company, and they say, okay, great, we'll sell it. How much are you willing to pay? It's never about that. It's more talking, getting to know the people, figuring out, hey, do our values line up? If somebody's sole goal is to extract as much cash out of the business as possible, there are probably better buyers out there, or different buyers than us. But, we know we got to be competitive when we make an acquisition, but it's more, than just, like I said, buying a bunch of accounts and a bunch of old equipment. We're buying people, we're, buying relationships. And that, I think, is where maybe we're a little different. Anybody can pay the highest multiple, but if you really want to see your business continue and flourish, and your people that helped you build it, I think we could be a great opportunity.
I think so too. So everybody who's watching, who's interested, please reach out to Lee or check out the Greenery. Lee, this was a lot of fun. Thanks a lot for joining us here on The Close.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed the conversation.